This is The Competitive Edge with John Dumas. Welcome to The Competitive Edge. My name is Scott Britton, and I'm here to help you answer a question that we all have. How can I get an edge in my business and life? Each week, we're going to uncover how some of the most successful and inspiring entrepreneurs, entertainers, and thought leaders get an edge so you too can reach your full potential. Do you want more unique ideas and tactics like the ones we're about to share in this episode? Then you're going to want to do two things. The first is to subscribe to The Competitive Edge on iTunes so that you don't miss out on new ideas from future conversations. After this, you're going to want to go check out my main site, lifelonglearner.com. When you enter in your email address to join the Lifelong Learner community, you'll get access to my most advanced strategies to stack the deck in your favor. Again, that's life-longlearner.com. Top of the morning, Competitive Edge listeners. I met an Irish girl last night, so I have this phrase stuck in my head, even though she didn't say it. Anyways, if you're listening to the show right now, odds are you're a fan of podcasts, but you may be wondering whether creating one is really that valuable for your business and if you can actually make some moolah putting one out there. Well, today, my friend John Dumas is here to absolutely obliterate any of those doubts. John is the host and founder of Entrepreneur on Fire, which has been one of the top business podcasts over the past year. If you're wondering whether you can actually make any money doing a podcast, John is making over $200,000 a month from his show and inspiring people all across the world, which is a pretty good gig if you ask me. Today, John's going to give us some insight how people should think about podcasts and the best way to launch one in what is becoming an increasingly crowded space. We'll dive into how he's been able to monetize and the systems that help him scale himself as his business and demands have grown. There's a ton of good mindset stuff in here, and the advice in this episode are applicable to anyone interested in entrepreneurship, whether you're starting a podcast or not. So I highly recommend sticking around and hanging out with me and John for a bit. Alrighty, I hope you enjoy this episode with John Dumas. John, what is up, man?
Scott, I'm just here preparing to ignite, my friends.
I love it, man. And I love it because we're neighbors now in San Diego, which is awesome.
Are you here? When did you move here?
I moved here 3 weeks ago, man.
Well, why haven't we hung out yet?
We need to change that. John, I love what you're doing, man. You've been able to build this awesome media empire, and you're helping people launch podcasts everywhere across the world. But one of the things that I've noticed is it is getting super competitive to get your podcasts out there, to get your message heard as more and more people are launching them. So I thought we could dive right in here, and I'd love to hear, man, how you think about and coach people who are launching a podcast, how they can really stand out in this competitive landscape.
This applies to every entrepreneur across the board, but I am going to really curtail this towards podcasting specifically. But again, it's just applicable for any entrepreneur in any venture in any niche. And that is specifically that very word, Scott, niche. So many entrepreneurs, they start and they just want to resonate with everybody. They're like, it's a whole wide world out there, this global flat world that we live in now. Like, I want anybody and everybody to be able to hear me, to like me, to buy my stuff. Like, why would I ever narrow my market? Why would I ever narrow my niche? And my response is, well, congratulations. You are in the 100 percentile of entrepreneurs who think that way when they start, including myself, who thought that exact same way. And it's 100 degrees wrong from the direction and the thought process you should have. It's the exact opposite. Because when you try to resonate with everybody, Scott, you truly resonate with nobody. 2014 and beyond is truly going to be the years of the niche podcast. Those people that really feel that they have a passion in a very specific topic need to sit down, really create exactly what that podcast could be about, and then say, how can I make this even more niche? How can I even dive down even further so that when somebody's listening to it, that perfect listener, that one avatar, they're going to be like, oh my God, like Scott, it's like he's talking to me. Like, is this podcast just made for me and nobody else? And you know what? That is going to get you off running because you're going to build a small but loyal and raving audience in that niche. And then, Scott, and only then, once you've gained that traction, once you have that momentum going forward, now you can start to move out and expand and broaden a little bit and bring more people in and listen to more angles and examples and pivots. But only then. The only way you're ever going to get that traction going, Scott, is if you do that first initial niche.
Absolutely, man. I can't agree more. And I would go ahead and say that like this is applicable for all types of content. Like I know that Derek Halpern, who's grown a wildly popular blog in social triggers, he started out just talking about conversion. And after he really went just an inch wide, mile deep, developed his tribe, then branched out. I mean, now he talks about how to be productive, how to be charismatic when you go into a meeting. So this, you're so right on point, man. And I'd love to hear like how have you done this in your own business?
No, I love that phrase too. That's, an inch wide, a mile deep. And if people can just listen right now and they picture like a T, picture a T that's actually standing up on its head. That first T that's going across, that's that wide. That's when you're kind of like, okay, what do I maybe want to do that's going to work? And then when you find that thing, that's that vertical that's going down. Then you dive that mile deep down straight into the ice and you continue to bore down into that one niche, into that one thing that works for you. And I'll be the first to admit, Scott, as I said earlier, I did not do this when I first started. I was like every single other entrepreneur making that same mistake, thinking if I niched, I was going to be cutting out an audience, that I was going to be limiting myself in some way, shape, and form. So I created Entrepreneur on Fire as a broad podcast. For me, there was a ton of luck involved. I started before there was this big rush into podcasting. I was the first person to come out with a 7-day-a-week podcast, interviewing inspiring and successful entrepreneurs. I was the first person to really put all of my eggs in the podcasting basket and make that the only focus of my business and just crush it every single day with every ounce of my soul, time, and energy. And because of that incredible hard work, Scott, and because of a lot of luck, because of timing and other factors, like I was able to make it. And people who have tried to replicate that in recent times have not been able to, because again, it's not a model that is going to be successful for people to start with that broad. So I'm just not a great example of somebody when you look at how I started Entrepreneur on Fire because of those lucky factors. But where I do become a great example is with a recent community that I've created that is that where I have just 100% found one thing that works, found my niche, my thing. I put in all of my time, energy, effort, focus, advertising dollars, you name it, into this one thing. And it has grown now into the number one podcasting community in the world. And what I'm referencing is Podcasters Paradise. And it took me a while to get there. I thought I was just going to be creating, Scott, a lot of these little mini courses or ebooks and just kind of having these one-off things. But then when I realized that, hey, there's really a need for this podcasting community. There's really a need for people that are looking to create, grow, and monetize their podcast, to have a place to go for tutorials, for community, for just guidance from the people that are crushing it. There needs to be this one place. And for me, that was Podcasters Paradise. And, since we've launched just in October of 2013, Scott, because of my focus, because of my willingness to niche into that and just block out all the other distractions, we've grown Podcasters Paradise to over 1,200 members. We've done over $940,000 in revenue. We're just under the $1 million revenue mark.
Boom.
And it's only been 8 months.
Dude, that is insane. And let's just segue into this, because a lot of people like, okay, cool, podcast, that sounds fun, but I can't make any money off that. And you have done an amazing job monetizing your content, man. How do you think about that?
So Entrepreneur on Fire, our business, we generate over $200,000 every single month, and we are very transparent, and we show those on our monthly income report. So there definitely is money in podcasting, and everything that I've built comes from a podcast, Scott. But anytime I hear people say that, I'm like, dude, I totally hear you, because literally 22 months ago, I was saying the same thing. I was thinking the same thing. I didn't know how I was going to monetize. I didn't know if I was going to monetize. I just knew that, you know what? I have this thing, this passion inside me that I want to create a 7-day-a-week show that interviews inspiring and successful entrepreneurs like yourself, Scott, a great past guest of Entrepreneur on Fire. And that was my vision. That was my goal. And by hook or by crook, I was going to execute on that mission that I set for myself, not knowing where it was going to lead me in the monetization level. But what I realized with, by the way, the first 9 months, bringing in $0, only going in the red because I was investing in myself with mentors and masterminds and courses and equipment, I realized that, hey, it's all about, number one, delivering consistent, free, and valuable content, growing an audience around that delivery mechanism, which for me was podcasting, growing that audience to the level where they're saying, hey, John, these are my pain points. These are my struggles. These are my challenges. And me saying, you know what? I'm going to create the solution to that pain point, to that struggle, to that challenge, and then offer it to you. And that's the first time. And again, it took me 9 months to get there, of 10, 12, 14-hour days to get to that first profitable month, that first month where I didn't actually lose more or invest more in myself than I made. And so it wasn't an easy road. It wasn't an instant flip of the switch. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of listening, and a lot of creating till I finally did turn that corner. But the powerful thing is, Scott, and you're realizing this with your business, is once you've built that audience and once you've gotten that momentum to stop going, towards the red, which is where it always starts going at the beginning, and you're able to push it back, and now the momentum's going towards the green and towards actually generating positive returns on your time in your business. It's like you don't just turn on this income stream and it's like a little drip. It's more like a waterfall. And for us, our first revenue month that we actually made money was a 5-figure month. So it was in a big way. And then it's only grown since then.
That's amazing. I've noticed this theme where before, a lot of entrepreneurs, what they did was build a product and then go and try to bring that product to their audience across the web, across cold calling, however they tried to reach them. And now what I see and kind of what you've done, which is super interesting to me, is kind of turning that on its head and building an audience, then understanding that audience and then launching products into them. And this is not just for people out there that aren't interested in information products or training. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. Like Dave Asprey is an amazing example of this, where he's selling coffee and supplements and physical products. And I just think it's so cool because, you are curtailing and almost de-risking your success because you know exactly what people want, because you're doing the audience first and the marketing first.
No, I 100% agree with that. It is turning traditional internet marketing on its head. As you kind of mentioned, in the old days, you would go to ClickBank and you would see, what are the products and services that are selling? And then you would go create your own little one. And then you would go back to ClickBank and say, okay, what people can I reach out to have them sell my products? Because, I want affiliates to sell my product for me. And a lot of people would sell it at a loss or even at like a 99% affiliate commission because they were hoping on the back end that they would be able to upsell that client, that person that purchased that product or service into a future upsell. And that's, that's a tough game to play because you're having to go back to the well every single time. But by flipping it on its head, by being a thought leader, by being a value giver of doing what I love, which is Albert Einstein's quote, try not to become a man of success, but rather become a man of value. By putting that focus first. And those are the foundational principles I built Entrepreneur on Fire off of, being that man of value, and then letting that audience build below you because of that value you're providing, and then just listening and saying, hey, you're telling me, and this is a huge point, Scott, that I want to make. For both Podcasters Paradise and Webinar on Fire, we listened to our audience. They told us what they needed, what they wanted. We did not go out and create that. What we did was we said, okay, you say you want this? Okay, we're hosting a live webinar where I'm going to show you on this live webinar, you're claiming you want this. I'm going to show you on the live webinar the outline, the wireframe of what this community will be, of what this product will be. And then we're going to offer you an early bird special, which is going to be 50-ish% off what will be the price of this when we actually launch this product in a month, in 45 days, whatever that number is.
That's great, man. Yeah, I think it's just like at a high level because maybe people don't even. The idea is to just galvanize people.
Actually want us to create this, then we're going to go ahead and create this for you after you've proven it with dollars and cents. And that's huge for us, Scott, is that like we're not going to take time behind walls and in a closet, like creating something just because people say they want it. They have to prove it to us with their wallets, with their dollars and cents first, and then we create it and then we release it to the world. So we did that with Podcasters Paradise. We did $7,000 in pre-sales, and we're like, okay, proof of concept. Then we went and created it. Now we've done 933,000 more in sales. Webinar on Fire. Okay, pre-sales. We did $10,000 in pre-sales. Okay, people want this. Then we went and created it. Now we just, in the month of July alone, did $20,000 in sales for this Webinar on Fire course, which is a very secondary course for us. Podcasters Paradise is our flagship and it's our focus. So it's an amazing secondary product that we have. So that's where the focus needs to be, Scott.
Now, I'm curious. I imagine that as you just kind of like extrapolating the future here, you're just going to continue to listen to your audience and see exactly how you can serve them and create these types of products, which is an amazing, amazing business.
Yes, totally.
John, I know that as your business has grown, as your thought leadership has grown, and more people are interested in asking you questions, getting your advice, it becomes really challenging to manage it all and scale yourself. And I know one thing that you've been very thoughtful about is implementing systems. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your systems mindset and how you've actually implemented these in your business?
So there's one law that I put above all other laws when it comes to my business, and that's Parkinson's law. Because for me, I realized at a very young age, Scott, tasks will expand to the time that you allot them. And so with that one knowledge as a reality, anybody that's been to college and has been like, oh my God, I have this huge paper due tomorrow. What am I going to do? Well, guess what? Shockingly, it gets done in that one night because Parkinson's law is a reality. Tasks will always expand to the time that you allot them. So when I first was launching Entrepreneur on Fire, people are saying, John, you're crazy. You can't do a 7-day-a-week show. And this is from my mentor. This is from Cliff Ravenscraft, the podcast answer man. They're like, a 7-day-a-week show, one, nobody's going to want to listen to it. And number two, like you're going to collapse if you try to do this because it's just too much. And I said, well, not only guys, am I going to show you that I can do a 7-day-a-week show every week, I'm going to show you that I can do a 7-day-a-week show 1 day a week. And every single Monday, back to back, I have 8 interviews on the hour, every hour. And Scott, you were one of those 8 interviews one day. And that's just a reality that I set that task to an allotted time. And shockingly, at the end of my Monday, every single Monday, I have completed 8 interviews for Entrepreneur on Fire. And that happens every single Monday. So my task will always expand to the time that I allot it. So I make sure to only allot the bare minimum number of time that I know I need to complete each task. And I do that for my interviews on other shows. Scott, we're talking right now on a Saturday because the only time that I do interviews on other people's shows is on Saturdays between 10 and 2. That 4 hours, I do 8 25-minute back-to-back interviews. That's how I've allowed myself to appear on a ton of other shows because I get asked to be on so many shows. I'm booked out through October as it is on this Saturday format to continue to run Entrepreneur on Fire, my podcast. I just released a brand new daily podcast, another one called Quotes on Fire, which is a daily quote and a resource that I recommend. And I'm about to launch a daily video show called Mornings on Fire, all because I'm allotting my time and being very specific with the task at hand and really segmenting that out. So it's all about batching. It's all about having that schedule and then just sticking to it.
Yeah, I think this is such a valuable lesson because there's just so many different things that we can do for our business. And it's so easy to just opt for things that are lower resistance that often aren't the most important things.
So true.
Are there any type of other things that you do in terms of like standard operating procedures, virtual assistants?
Well, you use the word standard operating procedures. I mean, that's close to my heart being an Army guy. I mean, we call those SOPs. We utilize them for everything that we do in the military. So I love that. My team is small, but we are powerful. My girlfriend, Kate, She is the director of content creation. We have 3 full-time virtual assistants who work 40 hours a week for us. They have their specific tasks. So I'm always looking to leverage everything that I do. Whenever I'm doing one task, Scott, I'm like, can my VA be doing this? And if they can, I create a quick video tutorial for them, and then it becomes their task for all times. If I could outsource me being interviewed on other shows, I would find out a way to do it, which actually I wouldn't, because I love doing these. But, that's just what I'm saying, though. Like, things that I do repeatedly, like the redundant tasks that come day to day, I find a way to leverage my time, put it on my employees' plate, my virtual assistant's plate, which frees me up to focus on the things that really generate revenue, which is number 1, Entrepreneur on Fire, growing my audience. Number 2, Podcasters Paradise and Webinar on Fire. The live podcast workshops we do every single week account for 87% of the sales of Podcasters Paradise. And 87% of the $200,000 we did in sales for Podcasters Paradise in July is a huge number. So it warrants a lot of my time, a lot of my focus to get the webinars, to get the email sequence right, both pre and post webinar sequence, to really drill down how to crush a webinar that converts. All of these things I'm always having to work on, because these are tasks that I have to do, that I want to be in my voice, whether it be an email in my voice that's going out to the thousands of people who have signed up, or whether it be the actual webinar presentation myself, where it's me, my voice coming through. Those are the things that I do. And then everything else, Scott, I am all about outsourcing.
I love it, man. I just think it's such a powerful mindset. I mean, because you can only scale yourself so much, and you have to make sure that you're just focusing on the highest leverage things. And for you, it sounds like your prioritization framework is what brings in the most dollars.
It is. It's the 80-20 rule. I'm actually having Perry Marshall on my show this coming Monday, and I'm a big believer in that mindset. Like 20% of your actions will account for 80% of your results. So find that 20% of things that is actually producing the results, the revenue, the resources, and just focus 80% of your time on it.
I love it, man. What's been the biggest shift in your business in the past 6 months?
I would say the biggest shift by far has been our focus on our live workshops that we do every single week. And it's been about exactly 6 months now that we've been doing it. We made a pledge at the beginning of 2014 that we were going to do a live free podcast workshop every single week. So by hook or by crook, Wednesdays, 12 p.m. Pacific time, I am live giving a webinar on podcasting for free to as many people that show up. We typically have between 100 to 200 people live on these Hangouts. We've had as many as 500 when we've really cranked up the Facebook and YouTube advertising. But it's an amazing time for me just to get really exposed to people who are like, yeah, I've been hearing about this guy that does this live free podcast workshop every single week. I'm going to go check him out. And every single week, we're continuing to grow that audience. We're continuing to deliver value, and we're continuing to convert in a massive way people into Podcasters Paradise on these live webinars, because they are primarily focused on delivering 45 minutes to an hour of just value, podcasting value, how to create, grow, and monetize. Here's the value. And then the last 15 minutes is, hey, by the way, if you're looking to really take things to the next level, if this got you excited about podcasting, we have a podcasting community. It's the #1 community in the world. Scott's a part of it, called Podcasters Paradise. Let me take you inside, show you what we got. And oh, by the way, as a thank you for being here live on this webinar, you have a $300 discount, only good on this live webinar. And I would love to see you take action on that. And every single week, we do between 25 to as high as 40 sales of this $900 lifetime access course, which is why we generated in the month of July $200,000 in sales just for Podcasters Paradise alone. Again, 87% of those sales came on that live webinar.
Yeah, man, webinars are super powerful. John, I know that we have limited time here. I want to make sure that people know a little bit about your show and where the best place to go is. And I think maybe a cool way to introduce that is, what are 2 episodes that people need to listen to on Entrepreneur on Fire?
Okay, definitely go to entrepreneuronfire.com, and in our little search bar, just type Sally, Sally, And Sally Hogshead is one of my favorite past guests. She delivers an incredible episode. I would definitely recommend that. I want to say it's episode 624. And of course, if you're listening to this episode right now, you know, like, and trust Scott. So if you want to hear his journey, his failure, biggest failure, the lessons he learned from that, you know, his aha moment, the steps he took to turn it into success, and much more in depth than he's ever shared with you on his own show, come on over. Type in Scott in the search bar. His podcast will pop right up, and give it a listen. The guy's unreal.
Thank you, brother. Well, I appreciate you coming on here today, man, and just keep on rocking it.
Yes.
Before we finish up with today's Mindshare, I just want to say thanks for listening to another episode of The Competitive Edge. If you enjoyed the ideas in this episode and want access to future conversations, the best thing you can do is subscribe to The Competitive Edge on iTunes. If you haven't done that already, right now is the best time to take care of that and get on board. And while you're there, if you feel like this show has made a positive impact on your day, it'd be great if you could leave us an iTunes review so that more people can find the show. Now, I know we covered a lot in this episode, and there might be a few key ideas or tools that you want to remember. So we went ahead and compiled all of the notes and links mentioned from this conversation for you on lifelonglearner.com. That's life-longlearner.com. Alrighty, let's go ahead and dive into today's Mindshare. What is up, everybody? Thanks for listening to the episode with John where we wrapped on podcasting. And I just wanted to give a quick tip and idea here and just thought about podcasting. So, you know, I'm over 30 episodes now and I'm absolutely loving my podcast, and hopefully everyone listening out there is enjoying it and getting value from it. One thing to realize if you're potentially interested in getting started with podcasting is the absolute hardest part of podcasting is getting just the system set up, where today, basically all that I do is schedule a call with somebody, step in front of the mic, press record, and then send my files out to a variety of different specialists, from an audio guy. I have Lazar, my assistant, prepare my blog posts. I have somebody create an image for the show. All of that is outsourced. And what's really, really cool about this, and John kind of alluded to this, is that now that that system is in place, you can basically launch podcasts into whatever vertical or niche that you want. So for example, if I was wanting to create a software product for physical therapists like my friend Carl and Josh do, I could go ahead and create a physical therapist podcast where I could go and get the top physical therapists across the world who are doing who have the best businesses, biggest practices, whatever, have them come on my show and then establish a ton of credibility in this niche that I'm trying to sell into. And that's just an amazing place to be. And you can imagine that you can do this with every single different type of product out there. If I was doing a sales efficiency software, I could go and become the go-to place to hear the best advice from the top sales professionals and launch that pretty quickly because the system is in place. And now all that I need to do is go ahead and basically start getting these guests on and having them and talking to them. So this is just really, really cool. There's a ton of residual value in starting a podcast for this reason. And I think that that's something that I always try to do, and something that people listening should do is, you know, everything that you do, is there going to be residual value in this investment? Whether that's having a podcast, whether it's starting a blog, whatever it is, hosting a conference, you know, is there going to be value extended beyond just the immediate output that's created from a specific thing that you invest time in? So just a thought, if you are interested in podcasting and you want to get started, John has a great program for that. I'm also happy to help. I just put out an article on my blog, life-longlearner.com, where I talked about how to basically the 80-20 for marketing and growing a podcast. If that is interesting to you, highly recommend checking that out. And I just want to say thank you for listening today. It's been a pleasure. It's always amazing just to hear from people, see the positive reviews on iTunes. I really appreciate that stuff. I read every single one. And I hope you just have a rocking day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next show.